So we're
Aloha. My name is Danny Lee. I live in KL. It's good to be speaking a little bit late because all the fine points have already been made by all these great people. So I can make mine real short. So it will be short. Basically, now the reason they're doing all this training, even though they're, dirtying the place, spending billions of dollars, is they always say, oh, it's for your own good because it's for national security. It's for defending you guys. That's why we have to train, okay? But let me quote you from their own document. This is their mission. It's called DP, Uranium Update. Okay, listen to this. Our mission, this is in their own words, to provide the Army with the installation, capabilities, and services to support expeditionary operations in times of persistent conflict. Let me repeat. To support expeditionary operations. What does that mean? It doesn't mean defending here, the people here. It means to go overseas, to go intervene, to go invade. Is that the kind of training that they're justifying? That's what they say. So why are we doing that? So stop spending the billions of dollars and resources invading other countries, and then, of course, the people are going to be upset. That's why people come back and and do bad stuff, because the U.S. Army is training to go invade, bomb everywhere else. So spend all the resources, stop bombing Hawaii, clean up, and get out.
and then Dave after.
Okay, try to make this quick. I'm a Punitik, and I've been here about 40 years. And I remember when Jim... Oh, it doesn't matter who I am. I'm Steve. But I am a Punitik. I lived in this area for 40 years, and I lived 10 years on Oahu. I went to school at the University of Hawaii. I used to work for the Division of Fish and Game, and I have been on the island of Pohakuloa, and I've seen all of the holes and everything, the big mess. It's atrocious. I mean, Hawaii real estate is just too valuable to blow up. Actually, the whole world is too valuable to blow up. Anyway, it turns my insides every time I think about it and hear and see all this stuff. And if you don't remember anything else that I say, I want everybody to keep this in mind. Because we have the military here, we are a target. We're the target of North Korea and anybody else that wants to shoot. If we could get rid of them, this island isn't worth shooting at, So that's one of the main reasons we should get rid of Pohakuloa. And I've got one other thing to say. It was about 70 years ago when this little old man, Gandhi, he went up to the British and he said, you guys are going to walk out of India and leave us alone. And if Gandhi can do that without shooting one bullet, I think that we can do it too. And I want us all... We all need to work together, and I'm so glad all these kids here are from the Haas School. I was on the board of Haas School way back when it first started. Unfortunately, I kind of fall asleep in board meetings, so I'm not a very good board meeting person. I have some form of narcolepsy, but this thing about bombing Hawaii is totally crazy. And I've read through a whole lot of these EISs. I've been in the Sierra Club stuff. The whole thing is a whole lot of redundant double talk. They try to make it so impossible to know what they're saying, and they don't even know what they're doing. They just put that out because it's required. We have to just get in there and get in their face and keep answering all their bullshit. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, and it's just wrong. Eventually right wins out, because everybody knows in their heart what's right. Even those guys down there, most of them, they don't want to do that. It's just their job. They're there because they don't have anything else to do, and that's where they're getting their livelihood. And I have an alternative. Someone here was talking about what's an alternative. You know, there's thousands of square miles in Nevada that is just total bare land, bare rock. There's also most of the whole country of Australia, like 90% of it is just bare rock. There isn't anything growing. If you've ever been to Nevada, you can drive for miles and never see anything but sand. Maybe at the edges, there's places like Las Vegas and Reno where there's something where people live, but most of it's desert. I'd say we suggest or force them to go to Nevada if they have to blow up bombs. But in my opinion, shooting bombs off anywhere is moronic. It is absolutely insane. Why should we put our money out to blow things up? There isn't anything more crazy on the whole planet than to blow up some part of this earth. And the other part of that mountain up there is, actually I'm a biologist, I have a degree in biology, and I worked up there in Mauna Kea. We went up there and we count the palila bird. They used to live all over where Pohakuloa was. Wherever there was a mamani tree, there was a palila bird. And now all the birds are just barely surviving at a certain place where there's a few mamani trees left on Mauna Kea. And when they made the highway through there, they said, well, we'll give you land on the north side of the mountain, and that'll be for palila. That's the mitigation. That's like telling Hawaiians to go and live in Alaska. How is that going to work? The Army and the military and all the things they think of, most of it's crazy. And whoever said Pohakuloa is a dump, well, it is. It's an Army waste dump, and we do need to get rid of it. And I don't know, keep working on chasing these things out. And it's not going to happen unless we protest every day. A really wise guy said that a soft answer turneth away wrath or anger. But we have to just keep answering. You can't just talk softly, but we don't need to use any guns. We got to keep working on this. And the idea of making this a nuclear-free Hawaii is really important. So I have one other thing. I think the only thing that's really going to get them out of there, I'm afraid this is a pessimistic angle, but if Madame Pele rolls another layer of lava down there, that's about the only thing. It was like 1880 when one rolled down and went clear over the Saddle Road. So that would be the thing to pray if you pray to Madame Pele, which I don't, but if she sent down another one of those, that would be the thing to do. And the other, someone was talking about all the trees. Actually, I'm a very great fan of all the trees, and it's just atrocious that every time when they drop bombs and make craters and blow up all the trees up there, they don't come back. The place is a total mess. And when I was on Kaho'olabi, we walk around and you see huge craters. I saw a crater so big you could put this whole building in it. And there's craters everywhere that, like half the size of this room, those are all over the place. And one of the things I did up there was to plant trees. We planted ironwood trees. They found that it's the only tree that would survive in the area where we were planting. And most of the top of the island is a bare, hard, reddish clay-like surface that nothing can penetrate. And they wouldn't let us use picks or shovels. So they blew holes with plastic explosive. And then we put the trees in the hole. Because I was with EOD people, explosive ordnance disposal people, went ahead of us. But so the whole thing was crazy. This was in 1975. So, but we do need to replant it. We do need to take care of Kaho'olabi. We need to take care of this island, and let's keep protesting. Give those hard answers back to the Army, and we don't have to do anything but just keep up. It's like what it takes is eternal vigilance. Every day, everybody do what you can and say what you can and get these kind of videos out, because right now I know I'm preaching to the choir, but each one of you can go out and preach to the rest of this world. Eternal vigilance, no bombing in Hawaii.
Mahalo. And then after Dave, we have Adhan. Did I pronounce that right?
I can just tilt it a little. There we go. All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Dave Sansone, and it is great to see everyone out here tonight. Whew. Yeah, good to see you, Hala. So Pohakuloa, right? I was kind of appalled when I saw the notice that there's, a finding of no significant impact on Hawaiian culture. I mean, right? It's like a no-brainer in terms of what's happening up there and how obviously there's an impact. So, and then when I went to go and read the document, lo and behold, I couldn't open it up. Did anyone else have trouble with that or no? Yeah? Yeah, so basically it was a junk link that was sent out. Maybe there's some other reason or whatever, but, so we have a little bit of a communication problem, and it's been going on for generations. And this is what I saw when I was at the meeting about sonar, the Navy sonar thing. It was basically what I realized was over and over, the military, if we're lucky, they come out and have a meeting, right? They're saying they don't even need to have a meeting. And who is the one making the decision? Who's the one writing the report? The military. The military is saying, we write this report, we find that there's no significant impact, so we're just fine. We don't need to consult with anybody else. And that's really not a good thing, because what that amounts to is being completely unaccountable. And if you think about it, if you know anything about abuse, that's what abusers do. They don't listen, number one. They force their way in and do whatever they want. And they're completely unaccountable. The world's largest aggressor, military aggressor, is up here bombing the water source for this island. They're also the world's largest polluter. No accountability. And what that pollution is doing is poisoning each generation. These are chemicals that accumulate in our bodies and cause defects. We have high levels of birth defects here. We have high levels of diabetes here, cancer, so many different issues. So I was thinking wow, how can they really say there's no significant impact when you can be deaf, dumb, and blind in Hawaii? I mean, here I'm from the U.S. I've been here for 7 years, and you really have to be covering yourself and just smothering yourself with misinformation to say there's no significant impact. So here I was not even trying to do any homework for this, and I happened to find some information about how they have an impact. And this is just reading about Hawaiian awa. Okay, and this is a part with the cultural history, some mo'olelo. So sorry if I don't pronounce some of these words right, but I'll do my best. So this is a story relating to awa, and a couple characters were given some assignments to go out and do some tasks, and I'll just pick up in here. So at that time, Pohakuloa and Pohakuloa, guardians of the water, saw the water rippling and overflowing from the spring. As they went to investigate, they saw a shadow pass them by. Because of the overflowing of the water, the spring came to be called Kawaihu Akane, the overflowing waters of Kane. And so it remains to this day. Then I'll just skip a little bit, and then it says, Pohakuloa then took the water he retrieved to the base of the cliffs of Mauna Kea and dug into the earthen plain of Pohakuloa and placed the water there. From Pohakuloa, the water flowed underground and appeared at springs at several other places, including Ana Ohiku at Hanakaumalu, and then it mentions at the base of Hualalai. So this is, it's ubiquitous to understand the importance of the land, the importance of the water for Hawaiian culture and for anybody here, really. So, with that said, yeah, no significant impact. Okay, number one, the amount of land, 133,000 acres that's up there, how much of it is leased for $1 a year, or no, for 65 years? How much was stolen? Over 80,000 acres just taken by the federal government. Illegal land seize. I mean, and also, if you can't tell, I'm a little bit excited here. The occupation of Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii being illegally invaded, continuing to occupy it. Major issues. As it's been mentioned, depleted uranium, continual bombing, the training of multiple nations here is a very dangerous thing. Number one, because it is training people to extend the US empire. But if you're a student of history, you'll know that what happened to Rome, one of the reasons why Rome fell is that they were depending on other cultures to do their fighting. And then they basically had those people turn around and then attacked Rome. And that's a part of what brought Rome down. So the more the US brings all these people in here to come fight, what's to stop them to turn around and say one day, well, we learned a lot from over there and we want that place. And those activities are putting us at risk. We hear about, tomorrow we're going to be hearing the siren for the nuclear weapons, where, we have a serious issue that's compounding by the day as more countries are invaded and bombed, with Hawaii being a hub. Hawaii is a hub for military expansion. It's just natural for other countries to want to stop them. And it's our responsibility, and it's my responsibility as an American citizen. I'm an Eagle Scout. I was born and raised to be patriotic, but I have no pride for what has happened, what the US has done all around the world. The more I've learned about it, I have great shame. But there's a responsibility that we have to take, because, first of all, the money is taken from us and then used to go bomb other people. So it's done in our name with our resources. And, to do nothing really is consent. Okay, so I don't really know the complete situation with this, but my understanding is that the US commander here has a responsibility to be the protectorate of Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii. This was back from Queen Liliuokalani's days. And they are responsible for the deoccupation, and also, I'd like to add, they're responsible for the rehabilitation of the land. So yes, the US military does need to stop the operations. They got to stop the training, stop the bombing, provide the resources to clean up, and as it was mentioned, leave. Thank you.
Aloha. My name is Azan Iwashita. I'm here on behalf of myself as a concerned citizen, and also hand in hand with Malu Aina. I want to thank all of those of you who have stood up to speak so far, and those of you who are here with the spirit of Aloha Aina, and just carry that in your everyday being, practice of being. So I'm an environmental anthropologist by trade, and so I've looked over a number of these environmental assessments and impact statements and such, and looking over this draft of this CRMP / EA environmental assessment is like looking over the assessments of the kinds of rules that govern over much of the lands of Hawaii. As Corey and others mentioned, there's a foundational erasure of the military takeover and illegal occupation of Hawaiian lands. There's the distancing of land from people through outdated definitions of culture and methods of determining culture and cultural value. There's the discounting of impacts incurred by land and people despite findings, scientific findings, and the framing of unethical treatment of people in place as a matter of law, safety, and national security. What appalls me most as an anthropologist is that the military and their partners continue to operate on a defunct 20th century mode of understanding culture as historic, buried, and dead, and that they hold themselves accountable for nothing beyond these quote-unquote resources. The goals and objectives section of this Pohakuloa CRM makes clear that nothing living is of concern, and that even the historic places, archaeological sites, and sacred sites are only safe to the extent that they do not interfere in military objectives. Beyond this, the ICRMP-EA can be seen as a practice in the crafty scaffolding of language and quote-unquote facts to create the impression that the U.S. Army garrison is working legally and ethically to care for place, shrouding the basic fact that their occupation and live fire practices detain human-place relationships from developing and effectively obliterate land and everything connected to it. As it is written, this ICRMP and EA is at best an insult to the spirit of NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, which was developed in 1969. And this kind, in my opinion, this kind of partial and prejudiced scholarship, quote-unquote scholarship, is that which perpetuates the gravest ills of this society. Each of the human beings involved in the production of this draft and who will be involved in the determination of the legal standing of these documents and the effects of them are responsible for the lives, practices, places, knowledges, and gifts that will be lost as a result of these papers and the actions they allow. I have several hopes that the military holds itself and finds itself accountable, that there is an actual adequate assessment of the environmental and cultural resources in this area of Pohakuloa, and that this bombing of Pohakuloa stop. Thank you.
Aloha mai kako. Ovau Kau'i trainer. I'm a school counselor at Laupahoe Community Public Charter School. I'm also Aloha Aina. And mahalo to all of our students and faculty and members of the public and Aloha Aina. Everyone who loves Hawaii. Mahalo. There are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One of them is actually there are many, many good teachers in the Department of Education and in the charter school system, of which you guys are, part of that are addressing many of the important issues. If you don't know, this past summer at the National Education Association, the NEA, which is the largest labor union of teachers, over 3 million teachers, the HSTA representation, they had 2 representatives from Hawaii, one from Mililani School and one from Kuala Pu'u Charter School, which is, I'm from Molokai and my children attended that school. They proposed an item of business to the NEA, which was approved and accepted. And that proposal was that the NEA would produce an article, and it says the NEA will publish an article that documents the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy in 1893, the prolonged occupation of the United States in the Hawaiian Kingdom, and the harmful effects that this occupation has had on the Hawaiian people and resources of the land. So there are many, many dedicated teachers and people that are making efforts wherever they are. I think even Keanu Sai was like totally taken away with this action by the HSTA, like it came from a place that was totally unexpected. And the lesson is that wherever you are, if it's in sports, school, business, you have the power to make a change and to be a force for good. You don't have to be an activist per se. You just have to know what the issues are, do your research and your homework, and open your mouth. It's as easy as that. There are a couple of other things too. When you think about Hawaii as being the center of the military around the world, think about RIMPAC. Every 4 years, every even year, every 2 years, they're coming to Hawaii. Over 14 to 17 different nations around the world come to Hawaii so that they can have a chance to test their military operations and bomb our waters and our land. Every 2 years. Now you think about the operations. Uncle was saying that they bring their B-52 planes from where is it? Missouri. So what is it, 8 hours, Missouri to here? One plane takes 300, maybe 400 gallons of petroleum and gasoline per hour. It takes 8 hours to get to Hawaii. So how many gallons of gasoline is that? How many flights is that? And then think about RIMPAC every 2 years. The amount of planes that are flying and bombing our waters. Now, you think that the world is going towards a more sustainable economy, a green economy, right? But the military is the largest polluter, the largest draw on non-renewable resources in the world. Why are we allowing our tax dollars to be used for activities that will essentially mean our demise? And I'm not even talking about me, I'm talking about our great-great-grandchildren, our great-great-great-grandchildren, your guys' great-great-grandchildren. Your tax dollars are going to go towards that. So if we want to make a change, we need to start standing up and being politically active in our communities, on a local level, at a state level, a fake state level, at a national level, at an international level. We have to be doing these things. Otherwise, it just means our own demise. As far as Pohakuloa and the Humu'ulu region, you know that 20 years ago, the hydrology reports of the area, they thought that the water table was, far down, right? 2012, Don Thomas did his drillings. Where did they find the water table? 500 feet below the surface. Are they doing testing of the effect of the bombing on our water? 500 feet. It goes from 500 feet to 1,800 feet below the surface. Do you think that some of the craters on Kaho'olawe are maybe that deep? If they are, can we imagine the type of things that are going on at Pohakuloa? I have been on Pohakuloa. I'm a part of a group that travels the ancient trails of Umi. We go every summer, and we do this for a week. And we spent several days traveling across Pohakuloa looking for the remnants of the Umi Trail and the heiau of Umi. Everywhere where you go up there, you will find artillery shells, everywhere. And that's just from guns. Like, it doesn't even include the big things. My husband used to work for the department at Pohakuloa as a biologist. One of the reasons why he quit was because he knew what they were doing, that there are so many things that are being desecrated up there. You can go up to their own office and look in their office to see what kind of archaeological evidence that they have up there, and that is only a minuscule amount of what could be there that could be found. and it is in no way, in any shape or means, being taken care of, how can they say that there is no impact on our Hawaiian culture? It's a lie. I'm concerned because, frankly, we're at an impasse. We're trying to come up with solutions. A part of it is that not enough people are doing something about it. That's one part of it. A part of it is that we've allowed a government to take control, and essentially it's become an oligarchy, and we are at the mercy of an oligarchy. What happens in situations like that around the world? In other countries? Think about what they do in other countries in order to overthrow a despotic government. Are we willing to go there? What will it take? Do we believe in principles of democracy? Will we start writing? Will we start running for office? Will we start standing up and going to those political rallies and sitting outside our legislature's doors? Are we willing to do that? Because that is what it will take. If we are not willing to do what Egypt has done, or other countries to rise up against despotic governments, what are we willing to do? And that's the part where it comes down to us individually. And so yes, as an educator, my students are writing in testimonies. We should be contacting all of our schools and sending them this information so that they're teaching this. These teachers are. They're teaching their students about the truth. You go to any Hawaiian language immersion school, they're teaching their kids the truth about Hawaii. And that's what we need to demand, is that our schools be teaching the truth. Mahalo.
Now I see how you feel. Aloha, everybody. My name is Mala Lant, and I live on the Hamakua. Well, I thank you for saying so many meaningful things, and I'm here to represent the next 700 generations. I'm a midwife, a home birth midwife, and I'm here to represent gentle birth and how important it is to consider that. And so the military that I'm up against is called hospitals, institutions, and things like that, the ones that people feel like buying a house and buying a car is more important than their baby is coming, and the food they eat, and the words they say, and what they do every day. So I'm here basically to say, please stop bombing Hawaii, stop hurting things that are naturally to heal us, that are brought here naturally to heal us, and be able to take a moment in your day, just as my sister said, and just think about what it is you really want to stand for. And so the change, of course, that I'm representing, just like you're representing, is to choose peace, is to choose positivity, to choose inspiration, and to choose truth. But I also feel that this physically hurts me, or it's not hurting me, but it's hurting the mama, because I am the mama, and it's because it's hurting the men. I experienced my first death in my life by my sweetheart being killed in the war. And I knew about the war and everything, but when my sweetheart got killed in the war, I thought about how many sons that was. And so I have a bunch of sons. And so now I speak out for what we've done to the sons, what we've done to the men, and how they got like that, where this is more important than this. And you are me. you are the ones whose heart is vibrating with me. And we know who's listening. And so I'm here to just join hands with you and let you know that I can gather a lot of people together. And you all are showing me the steps that I can take in front of this force that it feels like. You know, but day to day, I'm nurturing oxytocin, which is the opposite than adrenaline. The kindness that we can give each other, and the tenderness. And it hurts me that men have to be taught how to kill and taught how to, that just the war, you know, just the weapons they use, and we have to put all of our care into that. You know, I would rather, like, you know, be gentle with each other. And, you know, I know that they're always fearful. Well, I don't choose that. So I know you don't choose that either. So I'm with you.
Thank you. And then Ron, you're up next after.
Hi, everybody. Aloha. Thank you for listening to our testimonies, and thank you guys for being here today. I've just seen so many beautiful faces of people that I knew. When I walked in, I thought I knew no one, but we're really in this together, and I've done a lot of traveling back and forth with different activist communities, and so it's really nice to meet these faces because we are so imperative for each other's survival. My ancestors are from this Aina. I'm 1/4 Hawaiian, and another testimonial person spoke of their friends picking up the pieces of our bones where they are bombing, and those pieces of bones are my family members. So when you are bombing us, I want you to think about your grandparents and your great-grandparents and the backyard that you grew up in, because that is what you're doing every time you pass the paperwork over, every time you try not to listen to us, because this is a turning point in our world. If we want to talk about national security, we need to talk about climate change and environmental desecration. If you want to help our people, you need to start building levees, because we are looking at a time of massive refugee crisis, massive starvation, massive war. If we do not stop right now, we need to look at our priorities and get grounded with what that means. It is difficult. We all have jobs to do. We all feel this attachment to our finances and our money. But at the end of the day, the money that we make with our work will not matter if our grandchildren cannot breathe the air, if our youth are afraid to have children. I'm afraid to have children, I'll be frank, because of the world that we're facing. There are babies running around here who are going to see massive climate change in the future if we do not do something now. And we have leadership in this world that thinks that racism and divisiveness and nationalism and fascism are the answers to our fears. And those ideas are so unfounded. The things we really need to be afraid of are our divisions and the messes that we need to clean up as a people. So that is what I ask of the US military, is for each of you to look at who your boss is and forget that, because you are in charge of every action that you make as an individual. And you are the world. You are the answers to saving us. If we do not do something now, our planet will look like Venus in the future. That is the trajectory that we are seeking. If we do not realign our priorities, there will be not a microbe of life that can survive on this planet's soil. So it is not just Pohakuloa. Pohakuloa to me as a Hawaiian person is a symbol of a much greater international cry for help, of an indigenous cry for help, and of a cry from our ancestors and our future generations who will not have a world to live on if we are so focused on security and racism and nationalism that we cannot see. So someone earlier mentioned Black Flag. Black Flag is a reference to anarchism. And there's lots of other great punk bands in the world, but I think that's a really important thing to think about when we're talking about the ethics of our leaders and the ethics of people within the military system, which is the greatest polluter of the world, that if your superior tells you to do something that is heva, that is wrong, it is still your duty to ignore them. It doesn't matter. You know, when they look at psychological studies of Nazism, the people who were the best Nazis were the most obedient ones. The people who did the most atrocious things were able to do so because they passed responsibility on to others. They felt that because they were given orders to do something wrong, that it wasn't their responsibility because they weren't in charge. And that is the lesson of anarchism, that you are responsible for your actions. So it doesn't really matter if we have a president who thinks that racism is the answer. It doesn't matter if we feel powerless because the military has taken over our land. Every single one of us needs to stand up and fight that. So I thank you guys for bringing your children here and for bringing your youth and spreading this. Don't be alone in your activism. Share this with other people because every person in your life has a heart and a mind, and every person in your life should be here tonight and should be at every meeting and every rally. So I hope we grow ourselves, and thank you.
Aloha Kauko. My name is Leah Gaukar. I'm from Pohakuloa. I'm also a teacher at Haas. I'm so happy to see all of you guys here today. I love you all. Like everybody else in this room, the heva-ness, the eha of Pohakuloa is obvious to me. But I came here tonight specifically to speak about this EA, which is completely insufficient. The environmental factors not analyzed in this EA include water quality, geology and geography, hazardous waste site contamination and cleanup, noise, just some of them. There's more. So even what their cultural resource management plan encompasses doesn't encompass some of the most critical components that they will need to clean up. My children are outside, I'm sure you all noticed, but it's one of the first things you teach your keiki is to clean up after yourself. And the bombs are the problem, the bombing. And that's not even part of their plan. It's not even in this document to address. They have other things they address, air quality, soils, they say water resources, invasive species. And it is because of activism that this document is created. That is mandatory for the military to produce these types of things, to have this branch of that entity to address these issues. But this is completely insufficient. It says in here that in the Pohakuloa training area, there are 1,198 known archaeological sites. 39 have been designated as qualifying for historic preservation protections. However, only 20% of the direct impact area has been surveyed for cultural resources. No sacred sites have been designated, of course, because they only surveyed 20%. And that's not of the 123,000 acres, that's of the direct impact site. So they haven't done their duty to even survey what they're supposed to survey. They said their management plan is to provide streamlined direction for routine activities that may have an impact. Throughout this entire document, 100-something pages of it, They have a proposed action and a no action alternative. Majority of the proposed actions have nothing to do with them doing it. It's just connecting all the dots of the agencies that are already mandatory legally in place. And they're not doing much. So this document is a farce. It's, okay, sorry, kind of Hulu notes over here. They acknowledge how important this AINA is. They spell it out. They know the laws. Half of the first 100 pages is going over all the laws that pertain to this area. And yet they still really take no responsibility to do what they are legally obligated to do. And that is what I want to say to the military. That is what my testimony tonight is about. This document is insufficient. And yeah, and I want to say too that, you know, I am really grateful for all of you being here, especially on my haumana. I've known some of you since you were little babies. And, you know, I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and I still drove out here tonight in the rain after halal, after a full day of work, because it's so important. And thank you for coming tonight. It's what we need.
Okay, before I call Ron Fujiyoshi, who graciously let Leah go, I wanted to just address the Haas kids one more time before you guys go, because I know you guys got to go. It's kind of long, yeah, you guys? You think the Army wants to hear all this? No, they don't want to hear all this. That's why they didn't have a meeting. But the whole thing is, we got to make them listen. The Army, the government, the state, the county, all these kinds of governments, they pass laws behind your back. They write long documents, confusing documents, so they can do whatever they want behind your back. But you guys got to make yourself heard. You got to make them listen. You guys got to look at these documents and learn to read between the lines, because they're going to pull all kinds of things off. And if you don't say nothing, that's the same as consent. So in the next few years, you guys, think about what you're doing. You know, you don't have to necessarily do this, but care. Thanks, you guys, for being here.
I know it's after 7:30, so I thought I wasn't going to be able to even speak. But aloha, everyone. I'm sorry I came late, so I wasn't able to hear the great testimonies that everyone gave, and especially the students. And what I may be saying might be repetitious, so sorry about that. But I wanted to focus on the same thing that they did on the FONSI, the finding of no significant impact, right? Just the presence of the U.S. military. That's okay. Let me start all over again. My name is Ronald Fujiyoshi. Until January 1st, I was the pastor of the Ola First Hawaiian Church. So I'm retired now. I wanted to focus on FONSI, which means finding of no significant impact. And everyone has said what the farce it has been, and this is inadequate. Just the presence of the U.S. military here in Hawaii is of huge significant impact, right? And it started from the very first part in history. I think even in this document it talks about, you know, we know that the Army base in Wahiawa is called Schofield Barracks, right? So who is Schofield? Now, Major General John M. Schofield in 1873, okay, when Hawaii was an independent nation, was sent on a secret mission by the Secretary of War, William Belknap, to investigate the strategic potential of the United States presence in the Hawaiian Islands, okay? So a foreign country sent a Secretary of War, sent a Major General on a secret mission to find out why they're gonna use Pearl Harbor for its significant impact for the whole Pacific region. And that's exactly what's happening, right? So what can you say? Finding of no significant impact. That's a farce, right? Now, I was really honored that Lance Larson invited me as a guest to The Hague, Netherlands, on December 7th, 8th, and 11th in the year 2000 to participate or listen in on the Permanent Court of Arbitration. People talked about Keanu Sai. Well, Lance Larson was the one who sued his government for not protecting him when he was following Kingdom of Hawaii laws. And even then, in 2000, that's 17 years ago, what they found in that hearing was that it verified that the Kingdom of Hawaii exists, still exists legally. And secondly, that the US military has an obligation to apply not their laws, but the kingdom laws while you're invading. In other words, after World War II, US government had to use Japanese laws to administer Japan. So US government has to recognize kingdom laws while it's occupying Hawaii. That's international law, and that's not what they're doing, right? And so that's what is so important. I think those of you who were here in the Boys and Girls Club just this weekend when Keanu Sai announced that they had these fact-finding investigations that were scheduled for January 16th and 17th in Honolulu were postponed because U.S. government evidently is involved in at the Permanent Court of Arbitration to subvert this fact-finding investigation. And so it's very important historically what is happening right now. But what does this mean for Pohakuloa? Now, the PTA or Pohakuloa training area is made up of 3 large parcels of land totaling, well, you say it says about 133,000, right? 107,833 acres are made up of 3 parcels, okay? The first parcel of 758.3 acres was supposedly ceded to the U.S. Army on January 26, 1956 with Executive Order 1719 by Samuel Wilder King, Governor of the Territory of Hawaii. So, okay, that's the first large portion. The second large portion, now this first portion, is within, as some people said, within the ahupua of Kaohe in the district of Hamakua, okay? Remember that. Ahupua of Kaohe in the district of Hamakua. The second piece of land is 84,057 acres, is again supposedly ceded to the U.S. Army on August 15, 1964 with Executive Order 11167 by Lyndon B. Johnson, President of the United States. That's the second largest portion. And this land is made up of portions of the government lands of the Ahupua of Kaohe and the government lands of the Ahupua of Puana Hulu in the district of Kona. and the crown lands of Humu'ula, okay? Those are the three that make up the second portion. The third portion, which is Kuching and Maxine have done this case, are related to the lease of this third portion. This third portion is of 22,971 acres, is supposedly leased on August 17, 1964 by the state of Hawaii to the United States of America with the general lease number S3849 dated August 17, 1964, and was signed, it's signed between the state of Hawaii and the United States government, administered by the Board of Land and Natural Resources. So this is the lease that's going to expire. Now this land is made up of, again, portions of the government lands of the Ahupua of Kaohe in the district of Hamakua, the Ahupua of Puana Hulu in the district of Kona, and the crown lands of Humu'ula in the district of Hilo. Okay, the point is this: if the findings of the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague are correct, that the Kingdom of Hawaii was never lawfully incorporated into the United States, and that it continued to exist as a matter of international law, and as a territory occupied by another nation, the U.S. military has an obligation to apply the laws of the Kingdom of Hawaii, then the executive orders by the governor of the Territory of Hawaii, President of the United States, and a lease are all illegal. Yeah, that's the point. So, the government lands, see, it's because the Kingdom of Hawaii Mahele laws of 1848 are still operative today. Yeah? So the government lands and the crown lands of the Kingdom of Hawaii, lands of a neutral nation, were never meant for foreign military use, to use for military training, right? So that's why this fact-finding thing is being postponed, because it's a threat to what's going on, and it ties into exactly what's going. So I won't talk about anything else, but what I'm just saying is that even on the smaller scale of this EA, but definitely on a wider picture, this environmental assessment to claim that there is a finding of no significant impact is just impossible, right? Thank you.
Good evening and aloha. My name is Katie Benjamin. I had to come late this evening, and so I just want to thank everyone who's been here for all these hours. Really appreciate taking the time to speak and also the time to listen to one another. I'm a little saddened that the students left because my day was in a public school, not a charter school. I'm a substitute teacher at Waiakea High, and I was co-teaching today, which basically means for a sub you do nothing, you just be a student and you sit and you listen. And today I was in US government, where students were learning about imperialism, specifically US imperialism. And it brings me great joy to know that there are teachers, I've been an educator for a long time, that are educating about these things and seeking out the truth and seeking history from a perspective beyond just the colonial regime. Looking at the stories of actual people, but I have to say, disturbingly, that that is not the case in our public schools in Hawaii. It's very challenging for me as a protector and as someone who's very vocal to find myself in institutions, and I stay in the DOE because as a substitute, I can get away with a lot. I can talk to students, and I can have actual relations in a way that their teachers don't always have. I'm not totally blindered by the DOE system because I think it's a bunch of bull. So I'm an insider, right? Hopefully the DOE doesn't kick me out because of saying that. But today, the teacher was talking about how who are victims of imperialism? And the students these days are not terribly engaged. They're just like a second away from being in their screen, a second away. You know, so she's listing, is trying to get involved. Was Hawaii a victim of imperialism? And they're like, yeah, okay. Was Guam? And she's going through, basically just feeding them answers. A couple kids got a little more excited about Hawaii, but most did not. And she said that though all these places were victims, right, of American imperialism, that, quote unquote, we all live with the privileges of imperialism, which completely and totally wiped away any chance for a student in that room to feel differently, right? I'm a little bit upset because when I was in school, I was always real loud and real bossy and real like, no, that's not the case. I'd fight with any teacher who sounded like an idiot, right? Because there's plenty of them, right? There's idiots everywhere. And I didn't hear one single student stand up all day, and it ripped my heart out, you know? I didn't even see like that squirmy look of the student just like sulking because they want to say something, but they don't have the power, or they don't feel like they can. They were just totally unfazed. So I spoke up in a way that wouldn't get me kicked out. You know, I tried to engage. When I'm alone, it's a lot easier. So thank you to the educators in the world who are doing their work. When I think about Pohakuloa, everything that comes up in this room is important. The environmental impacts, the cultural impacts, the threat we are facing by putting a big bullseye in the middle of the ocean. Hey, look, we're America, come bomb us, right? They're really real threats. But when I look at Pohakuloa, when I drive across over Kona, I see genocide. I see the remnants of what was taken away from the original people of these lands. So after thinning the population through violence, through disease, destroying language, making it illegal to practice cultural practices. The next big part is the indoctrination, right? And we see the DOE, right? Comes in, pretend like we're all Americans, say the Pledge of Allegiance every day in school, in an occupied land, right? Well, the next stage of that is if you're going to truly create a genocide against a people, we've seen genocides time after time again. You never kill everybody. You're not actually very effective at eliminating populations. But then you got to move in your own. And so when I see the military testing up there, I live in Hilo. I live 2 blocks from here. And there are, for those of you who are living out in the country, there are new planes landing and flying out of Hilo Airport. Military planes, jets going off at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., all hours of the day and night. We all know the schedule of Hawaiian Airlines and when their first plane is and when their last plane is. And in the hours between those planes, there are massive amounts of air traffic coming through Hilo. It's a disturbance to all of us, and it creates an insecurity. A military presence is there to remind you of how small you are. When you see these jets, I saw one that must have been one of the giant ones that you put planes inside of to fly. I couldn't even understand the physics of how it was in the air. When you see that, that is to remind you of how small you are. When they put the razor wire up, it is to remind you that you can't. Well, we are the proof that you can. That we are not alone. That we can actively make these people have accountability. It isn't easy because as abusers, they don't want to be accountable. If we think back in not so distant history, if our lifespan is 80 years, right? It's a generous take. Say even it's 50 years. Let's go down. Because a lot of people, especially our indigenous people, are facing lower lifespans. It's very, very important. So if it's 50 years in your lifespan, 500 years is how many generations? 10. Okay? So we talk about the 7 generations. In 500 years, the North American continent was completely and totally ravaged and changed through those same practices of genocide. Come in, decimate a population, make it illegal to practice your culture, move in your other people, change what the narrative is, change what the history is. We're America. So the answer, in my humble opinion, is that we look to the time before that invasion. Lots of the early settlers who are going over, they didn't want to be part of an imperialist nation because they were fleeing, right? Well, it didn't take terribly long for them to change their mind. For the people over here or over in the US to be entitled. If we look back to the indigenous people of this land, of Turtle Island, of all lands, they have answers. And so it is our job, it is our settler kuleana, if we choose to be here, to amplify those voices, to look to them for the answers, because what has happened in the last 500 years, the Industrial Revolution, the mass militarization of the world, and the rise of one of what will go down in history as one of the most violent, most horrendous cultures of American militarism. Thank you.
Oh, all this talking that I did, and I haven't even actually testified yet. Okay, my name is Pohakuloa. For the record, most of the most salient points have already been covered, so, you know, after going through this whole document, I was able to narrow it down to one statement that really says everything about this. And this is in section 5.1, page 56. It states that preservation of historic properties is encouraged but not a mandated outcome of the Section 106 process. That says it all. That's it. I mean, that's the reason that we're here today is because we have vastly, drastically different priorities than the Army, and then all these military operations that are going on here, where the land itself is the priority. But as far as the military mission is concerned, the land is secondary, and I don't think that there's no further common ground once you hit that point. You know, something else that I want to point out is to do with sacred sites and why they say there are no sacred sites. I was able to find the how they define a sacred site. And this says, this executive order envisions discrete locations on federal lands identified by authoritative representatives as sacred by virtue of established religious significance or ceremonial use, rather than addressing a generalized sense of sacredness throughout the landscape. That's on page 42 in section 3.1. That's how they can say that there are no sacred sites. And this entire document is rife with misleadingly narrow definitions. That's why we're all freaking out, because we're saying, what do you mean no finding of no significant impact? But within the definitions of these documents, strictly within these documents, no, I suppose that the implementation of the plan itself and doing all these consultations and whatnot in itself isn't necessarily going to have a significant impact. But that's all aside from all the bombing and all the excavations and all the training construction and the live fire and all that. All that aside, the plan itself, oh yeah, that's nothing significant. No. And so I'd like to close this out, and I'd like to read from a couple of different laws, one of which is not American law. This is actually from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and this is specifically to do with military activities. It says that Military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of indigenous peoples unless justified by a relevant public interest or otherwise freely agreed with or requested by the indigenous peoples concerned. States shall undertake effective consultations with the indigenous peoples concerned through appropriate procedures and in particular through their representative institutions prior to using their lands or territories for military activities. Now, if we've read the ICRMP, yes, there's lots and lots and lots of consultation going on with OHA, with SHPD, all these. But what I had to realize is that consultation is not consent. I'm going to refer really quickly to United States Public Law 103-150, and I believe this is whereas clause number 25, paragraph 25, however you want to cite it, where it says, and this is also in response to their really, really lackadaisical historical context portion of the ICRMP, but whereas the Republic of Hawaii also ceded 1,800,000 acres of Crown, government, and public lands to of the Kingdom of Hawaii without the consent or compensation to the Native Hawaiian people of Hawaii or their sovereign government. We did not consent. I do not consent to this. And even if I were to say that, oh, sure, finding no, I'm not going to say take no action, but I'm not going to endorse this ICRMP or the EA because I do not consent, and neither do we. Mahalo.